welcome to another episode. Last week we approached the topic of supporting and how I tackle that. This week I'm going to show you how I support things that look like this. Yup, little tiny, dainty, delicate, hyper thin objects that you can actually push on. I mean, here's another one. This is incredibly small. This is a little necklace that goes on a figure. Now, these are all part of the accessory kit that comes with Mifa from Officer Roo. If you're interested in checking out any of his models, check him out on Gumroad and Cults. If you are a patron, you do save a percentage off. I think it's 30%. But these are all accessory parts. So every one of these is a piece that goes onto the character that, you can paint separately, then apply later. So, whether you're making stuff like this, or whether you're doing stuff dainty like the necklace and things like that, or hair, or anything that's fine and thin, you always have to remember when you're doing something like this, that's like pretty much, less than a millimeter thick, it's important to make sure that you support this well, and that you also make it easy to remove. Because if your supports are too heavy, and they're too thick, then you're just going to snap this object in half because your supports are going to be bigger than whatever is attached to it. And in most cases, your supports are going to be bigger than whatever this is attaching to. Because like something like this, it's very difficult to support things like this. Miniatures are challenging. This is like brain-blowing sometimes because you really, really have to. I mean, look at this. There's holes, in the detail there. So you have to make sure that you can get through all that. You have to make sure that detail comes through, and then you have to make sure that you can remove those supports. So anyway, without taking too much time just to talk about it, we're going to get right into it. You've seen what I'm talking about. Let's go. All right. So here we are in the slicer, and I'm going to go over a couple different objects. Now, here's the necklace we were looking at. Here's that headpiece. As you can see, there's a lot of little intricate details on here too. So getting all of that to come out and making sure that you maintain the object is very challenging. Let's go ahead and tackle that necklace first, because I know all of you are probably going, that necklace. And yeah, that was probably one of the hardest things to support for this particular model. So obviously in this orientation, this is awful. And the sucky part is the backside's flat and plain, but this little tiny piece here is just so precarious with these pearls that I was struggling to find a really good orientation for it. But eventually I settled with something that kind of looks like this. At a slight angle, side to side like this, and this part starting it with this piece over here just arcing over the top at an upward angle to try to give it a bit of an angle, and also try not to make, it is literally an entire overhang, but we're doing the best we can. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to our prepare set tab here, and we're going to click on the object. We'll apply a raft, and on these I'm going to use this raft with the edge there, the what do they call that one? That's the shape wall. Then I'm going to go over to my supporting, and I'm going to go to light. And I'm actually going to modify my lights for this particular one because I used 0.15 tips with a 1.15 bar, and I even adjusted the tip length. And yes, if you're asking me if the numbers matching means anything, it's not just my OCD. I actually have done a lot of tests where when I match my supports like this, they tend to work a lot more uniformly. It's a math thing. So yes, if you want to copy that format, you can. This should work fine. Now for super light objects like this, and that have probably multitude of islands too, we're going to go through this one little step at a time. So we're going to go over to our manual tab, and we're going to just pull up on the layer slider here until we start to see the object build. So there's our first set right there. So for this, now most of the time I would go ahead and start by, checking for islands and stuff like that. But honestly, I can see my islands. I know where they are. So we're going to apply supports to the middle of both of those starting points. And then we're going to apply mini supports here, 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 on the back, like that. And we're going to repeat that process, not on the front and the back here, probably just on the sides, maybe in the front there. And then we'll go ahead and we'll slide up a little bit. So now you see we've got pretty good support there. So starting off in the middle, spreading off into each one, having a little tree. Okay, here's our next section. So now we don't have to go and make our mini trees all over to start with. You can actually go back and do that later. But the layouts tend to get a little messy, so sometimes I like going through in the beginning and, just doing the tree layouts from the start. And feel free to use as many of those little trees as you want. Because they will help. They will definitely help. They will help the stability. And they will help your print build up better. And the thing is, too, is this looks heavy, like, because there's so many. They're not. They're super light. They're super thin. This is a 0.15 millimeter. Now, if you actually look, the object itself is a little bit thicker than the tips. So as long as you're not putting a tip on here that's thicker than the object, you should be okay. Now, is it still going to be tricky for me to remove the supports? Maybe not. These might actually just break off. In fact, the ones that I did on my first couple tests, they did just break right off. So it wasn't an issue at all. And again, I'm being sparing with the actual amount of real supports here because I don't want to put too much pressure and weight on the actual object. I want it to print right, but I don't want to put too much pressure when I'm removing supports. I want this to be able to just pop right out. So we'll go ahead and slide up. Now, funnily enough, I would actually, this might even be enough on the bottom there. We need to check islands and stuff like that, but that I didn't actually put a whole lot of supporting on it. So then we're going to get up to an area where that other section of the necklace is going to appear in thin air, and we're going to need to worry about that. So here we have one section that needs a little bit of help. Now I'm going to go ahead and just add some extra support there. And this is okay because this is a pretty thick section. It's probably about 1/4 millimeter thick, maybe half. So go ahead and then just as we draw this up. Now, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the tip of the pendant because that's going to be the tough part. But we also need to make sure that this is supported as well. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line of supports here, right across this area. And then I'm just going to draw a bit of supports around the perimeter of the backside of the necklace. And there we have that. And then if you want to, you can go through here and you can add a couple of supports in the middle to give the body some support there. And all these should be the same size. You should be working with that 0.15 tip. Excuse me. All right. So then we've got our pendant here that's finally started to appear. And then all these pearls, which, by the way, yes, each pearl will need a support underneath it because they are all islands. So there's the start of the pendant. We're going to go ahead and just clip one there. And I'm going to go ahead and just apply some mini bracings there, or mini supports there to make a little tree. And we're going to do a similar thing here. And then we're going to go underneath after we support the pendant. So once that builds up, see, all these pearls are all islands. So they're horrible. This whole piece was designed to give me nightmares, I think. So when people say that there are some things in 3D printing that you absolutely hate, yep, stuff like this. It's cool. It looks amazing once it's done, but the actual doing it is a bit of a nightmare sometimes. So then we'll, of course, need to support the perimeter of the pendant as well. And we're going to want to do, very, very light micro supporting there. So again, you're going to be using trees mostly, and, using one or two tips, or in this case, we've got the three there and then the one at the end, and then just trees to just support them a little bit additionally. Now, the good thing with these pearls, they don't live too long by themselves, and they're going to be really small and light. However, I don't think that one support per pearl is actually enough, and so you'd probably be best off at least doing a Y tree like this, just doing Y shapes across each one. And then you have a little bit better durability as you build up. And then we'll just continue that on the other side. I want to make sure I got all that supported too, because that's part of that perimeter. And don't worry too much about this flat part, because the flat part is actually really, really, it's tough. It's a little more rigid, so it'll bend a little bit depending on the resin you're using and before it snaps. So you'll have an opportunity to make sure you don't break that when you're removing your supports. You could also use a clipper. That is an option, because I don't like to use clippers. I like to just rip and tear. That's my technique. So for me, my supports are designed with the thought in mind of ripping and tearing them apart. I don't like to have to pull the clippers out. It gets the clippers all messy. They don't last as long. It's just no good. So don't do it. Try to avoid it. There are other tools you can buy, especially that are made for 3D print removal. I could recommend some of those, but those are mostly just gimmick tools anyway. Not a lot of them are really worth their money. All right, so there's our, there's most of our pearls supported. Now, somebody asked me a couple weeks ago what the white lines are in Lychee when you're moving your mouse around to do supports. And the long and short answer is that is a slice that you're looking at. Everywhere that white outline appears, it is a slice. So as you move your mouse, you can see where the slice is forming. It's actually really kind of neat that they allow you to do that, because it lets you plan a little bit better, in my opinion. Okay, so there's pretty much the pearls. And then we really just have to go back here and support the rest of this area and do our island checks on this piece, which I'm going to do real quick here on the edge. And again, we're still using those really, really light supports. And then on the edge here. And that is pretty much supported. That's good to go. Now, the only thing I would do at this point is just go validate and check your islands, because I think at this point, this thing would print probably just fine like this. It's not exactly the way I supported the one that I have for my pre-support kit, but it is very similar to what I did. So again, I could literally go back through and show you exactly what I did, but I kind of find it interesting to experiment with different layouts every time I play with these objects. And so this time I'm trying to be as minimalist as possible, but this light of an object will print just fine like this. And like I said, the only other thing you're going to want to do is check your islands and make sure that those islands are validated. And we're going to do that, and we're going to come right back. All right, so we've done our island search, and as I explained to you guys in the last video, the island search, I will do it at 20 microns, 35 microns, and then 50. And the reason I do that is because I'm comparing layer height differences and slice thickness to give me the most islands I can possibly find. I could go lower, I could go to 10 microns, but nobody prints at 10, not that I know of, unless you're a dentist. So didn't really see the need of going that low. But this is it, fully supported. This is ready to go and ready to slice. So you're probably wondering, like, would you take the same approach to a similar object like maybe the belt? Yes and no. The belt is actually a little bit more of just searching with islands and then kind of doing the support as best as I can. So what I did with the belt was I actually oriented it like this, so it was kind of backwards. And this is upside down as well. And the crescents were facing up instead of facing down. I didn't want the crescent points facing down towards the floor. I wanted them facing up. Alternatively, I had thought about doing it like this, but the crescents were facing down. So I wanted it to be the opposite orientation of that. And just to give you guys an idea, this is, in my opinion, not as delicate of an object, but if we were looking at this just from an island standpoint, it's going to show me all the islands that we have here, and this is just at 50. But you'll see there's 4. So there's 4 major points that have to be covered. And if you really wanted to, what you could do here is you could actually take one of your mediums or heavies, like we could take a medium that's a bit thicker, or even a heavy, and just stick it right there in that corner. And then right there. Not that corner. Right there. And now we have that one last island, which I will switch to a medium. And I will stick that right there and there. So those are your islands. And the rest of it would just be perimeter support. So then I would go back to my lights and I would support perimeter. So I would start by painting on supports here. Paint them around the edge. Paint this line. Until you have a perimeter line that kind of goes around the entire object. Now, I'm not going to spend the time to finish this one, but you get the idea. It's analyze islands usually and then go forward. Unless, of course, you have a really tiny object like this necklace, in which case I just recommend going layer by layer and seeing how your islands draw and create themselves, and just kind of go through and, you know, do your best to support the areas that you feel are going to be coming up on the print as the print builds. As long as you do that, you should be fine. Now, I did have these little earrings as well, which are very small, but even the necklace kind of trumped these on thickness as far as the different parts of it. So I didn't even worry about these as much. And all I did for these was to orient them, simply turn them over and make sure that this part of it was facing up, not all the way up, but up further away. And then I simply printed it like that at an angle, allowing most of the supports to hit these flat spots at the bottom. So that's pretty much my take on delicates and things like that. Can you guys think of anything more delicate? You maybe have a figure that you've worked on that just absolutely you just couldn't figure out the best way to do and you kind of gave up on it? Shoot me a comment. Let me know. I'd love to help you figure out your conundrums. If you've got a model that you can't figure out how to support, maybe it's a mini or something like that, I'd love to try and help you. So shoot me comments. Let me know. Post a link to the model. Maybe you'll see it featured in one of our videos. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this video, this episode. Thank you so much for watching, as usual. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye.